You're listening to the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, featuring real business owners telling real stories about their real business experiences. Here are your hosts, John Chiappetta and Eric Jorn.
Welcome, Dave. We have Dave Hinz here from MasterTech Auto Repair. How you doing today?
Great. How about you guys?
Doing great, Dave. Thanks for coming in.
Excellent. Hey, tell us about your business. What do you do?
So my business is auto repair. Been in it quite some time. I was a tech working for an independent garage for about 15, 17 years before I opened up my own place. And the hat that I wore was, a tech. It was never a business owner, as we were kind of talking about a little bit beforehand, and it took me a long time to realize the difference.
Definitely. That's one of the hardest transitions to make is from a technician to a business owner. And that happens in any industry. There's a lot more technicians, and technicians meaning whatever you are as a practitioner. Maybe you're an accountant, or you have an automotive repair shop and you're a technician. Making that migration to a business owner, it's a huge leap. It's a totally different mindset.
Like I said, I'm almost embarrassed to say how long it took me to realize that.
We were talking a little bit, 20 years in business, you got the shirt that established in 2000. Number one, congratulations for being in business for 20 years.
Thank you.
Not every business makes it that far, and not every business comes to the realization that, hey, I need to not be a technician anymore. I think that's a huge difference in what you're capable of doing and providing. Still, you're providing all that support for now you're just providing the support for your technicians versus, I'm sure you still have client interaction, but.
Yeah, it really is about the culture working for your employees, right? It's more about you really are working for them and making everything and building that culture so that they have a place that they can build a career, take care of their families, and feel good about where they're living and working at.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we call that servant-based leadership, right? You got to serve your team, they don't have to serve you.
Yeah, what a concept, right?
I'm not sure that's what we thought about when we got into that, when we got into owning a business, but it seems to be the way it's turns out, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that it does. It takes a long time to get there, to make that mindset, because I think even for me, it took me a long time to say, okay, I don't have to do this tax return anymore. I need somebody else to be able to learn and grow by doing this tax return, because you have that sense of control. And you relinquishing that control is not an easy task.
Yeah, and I tended to lead with motion more than anything. So you're dealing with the human that's in front of you, and how are they doing today? What's their issue? And you're basing your fees and everything else based upon emotion rather than business decisions. And what a difference.
Yeah, and the most important thing is finding these good humans, right? I mean, that's everything in running a business, is having the right people in place.
Wow, if that isn't any more apparent than it is today, I can't think of a single industry that really isn't struggling for humans. And when we put it at that aspect, all of us owe it to all of our industries to get involved, right? To help out where we can and make a difference instead of just being part of the problem. Yeah,
you always need to find the people for tomorrow, right? And I know you're involved in the. We had Sue Dixon on the podcast a few months back now, and she talked about her new program, Give Me 10, getting kids that are in college, just getting out of high school into the industry, getting their hands dirty, learning the job, and having the great mentors to turn them into tomorrow's leaders and tomorrow's technicians. So important. And I know you've been working with her on that and trying to expand that to other counties, including McHenry County, where you're located.
Yeah, hats off to Sue. She's done so much, and she takes all the red tape and all that stuff out of it. But when you get involved in this stuff, you realize how hard it is. You go to your local high schools, you find out that they got 15, 16-year-old books that they're trying to teach out of, and they've bought some new shiny tool that they got money for, but yet they're not focusing on wherever. And you show up at their advisory boards, and maybe there's 2 or 3 shop owners sitting there, and they don't get the support locally that they need. And I've always said, try to support local. You could try to make a difference nationally, but when you make the the effort to support local, I think, is where you make more of a difference.
Yeah. I mean, we're dealing with so many of the same parallels. It's almost wild. You never would put a auto repair shop owner in the same bucket as a CPA firm owner, but we're dealing the same thing with the average graduate or graduating class for accounting professionals is dwindling.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the scholastic programs aren't in alignment with the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I think the rate of people going into college to become accountants, or honestly, even if you want to look at the statistics of them taking the CPA exam, I mean, I think it's a pretty thorough decline. And I would assume that you probably find the same thing in your industry, where people aren't looking to go work on cars or, be a tech.
Do you know what the drop in ASC certifications is? Do you know what the change might be on that?
I have not heard that number.
That would be really interesting to know. Are the number of ASC because that would be that's my parallel from the CPA to the automotive repair industry are the ACEs being issued.
And I think what you got to put in that perspective too is the average age of a technician is 54 years of age. So there's a lot of retirement happening on top of that that are not recertifying, and with the lack of new coming in, right. I mean, it is just so lopsided. Yeah, the numbers got to be.
And I can't imagine that vehicles are getting any easier to work on either.
No.
I mean, I think they're becoming more sophisticated each year.
Right. And you think of the computer science. I mean, that's part of the problem. You get to the junior highs and the high schools, and the counselors, they just want to take the flunkies and send them over to the trades. And that's an obvious issue, right?
Yeah.
We need kids that are unbelievably smart. I mean, in our training with the hybrids, they show a grapple, ComEd gloves that need to be certified every 6 months. These type of things, when you're dealing with this kind of voltage, one wrong move, one, no focus, a lack of focus for a moment.
Wow.
It's such a different world.
Yeah. And it's funny you talk about how sending the flunkies to the trades programs, especially the automotive repair program. Well, an ATEC is a 6-figure job, and I'm sure a really good ATEC is well into the 6-figure range. I mean, what a great opportunity. I mean, we hear every day, kids graduating from college can't pay their student loans back. Well, hey, maybe avoid student loans, especially with all the different development programs out there for people who are going to this technical getting this technical education and get into this industry. I mean, and the job's actually cleaning up over time, right? A top flight ATEC's not really getting their hands dirty. They're diagnosing. They're on a computer for the most part.
Yeah, the equipment that they're using, the stuff that they're doing. I mean, you're talking computer network, lab scopes. It's all programming. There's so much that is done to fix a vehicle today that never even touches the car.
Yeah,
it's amazing, actually.
It really is. It's everyone thinks of their home PC and how many times they see it's doing an update and they don't think anything of it. Well, you take a car that's subjected to everything: road vibration, salt, water, all that type of stuff. And, there's lots of updates needed, and it's constant.
Yeah, what do the Teslas update just over internet signal, right?
A lot of them do today.
God, it's wild.
It parks in the garage. It will do testing. A lot of vehicles do testing on the gas tank systems once it's shut off, because then the gas tank's not sloshing around. It's not subject to temperature changes. Everything kind of levels off, and it knows that's the best time to test.
Isn't that fascinating? It's just a whole different world. Like,
right, and you're not going to take somebody who's going to evaluate that car for you, and it's not going to be somebody who's not educated. It's going to be somebody who's put the time in, put the work in, and educated themselves in the cars. And so, I mean, I see there's going to be a strong demand. I mean, because everybody has a car, you have to go somewhere. People going to work or whatever the case might be. And if the push is for electric vehicles, I think all we're going to do is continue to have more sophisticated equipment to work on.
Right, and electric vehicles really are about 6% of what's on the streets today, and there's a big push. The infrastructure is being pushed. I mean, you think about California. I mean, how are they? They can't even keep themselves with air conditioning on a regular basis. How are they going to, charge electric cars?
They won't be able to.
But the focus is changing, right? There's no doubt about it, and things are going to change. But where it's going to end and how quickly it ramps up, you hear everybody jumping on the bandwagon, but things aren't working out the way they want to.
What's the average vehicle age that's coming into your shop? Would you
It's
have
like
like
12, 14 years. I mean, it's really gone up.
And that's about the average age of the vehicle on the road, right?
Yes.
I think it's 12 years, something like that.
that's kind of an interesting
Well,
stat.
yeah, and when you think about it, I mean, back in the day, I mean, if you got 100,000 miles on a car, you were waving a checkered flag. Your feet were going through the floorboard. The rear quarters were flapping in the wind. I mean, today, 100,000 miles is first major maintenance.
Yeah. There's a 1,000,000-mile Tundra. Several of them now at this point. 1,000,000 miles on a car.
Holy
Unbelievable.
cow. I didn't realize that.
Old bias. I'm a Toyota guy.
Well, what's the record? I think it's a Volvo. I think it's 3 million something, right?
Wild.
Do they even rack up those miles? Remember those old ones that you would turn over?
They stop rolling
they
after
stop
a while.
rolling.
99,000.
Yeah, that's it on those, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
My dad had a 7.3 F-250, and the odometer stopped rolling at like 240. I think he had almost 500 on it.
That's pretty
That
incredible.
goes back. I'm dating myself a little bit, but Y2K, right? What was going to happen?
Yeah, it's amazing how much that just the day-to-day work has totally changed in your industry.
Yeah, I think the whole thing of back to the kids, we were talking about college and the trades, and I think I've read a few studies now that the trade-off is like 52 to 54 years of age. That's where the 4-year college actually starts to catch and even out to the trades, as long as the person in the
Wow.
trades is actually, investing in 401 and doing all the stuff that they're supposed to be doing.
All for their net worth.
Yes.
So take 52 to 54 years old.
Yes, it's pretty staggering.
And if you're willing to master your craft in the trades, I mean, sky's the limit.
Sky is the limit. And
Wow.
your value, I mean, let's face it, a great human that can fix cars today, not just throw parts at it, can go anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, and command a great salary.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember back when I worked at the Toyota dealer, you'd have a district technician where if diagnosis got to a point where you couldn't figure it out, you could actually call somebody and they lived in the region. I mean, I think ours lived in Minnesota, and he'd fly in and come look at a car. That could be your career. I mean, that's huge. Not that we don't like dealers here though, so we're all for the independence.
Whole different hat.
How many people do you have on your team?
7.
Okay, 7-person team. And then what kind of how would you describe your culture on your team?
So our culture is one of family. That's the way I'll use it. We're in between 4 walls probably more than we are with our regular family. So the idea is everybody's got to get together and get along and help each other out. Because if not, who suffers? The customer, number one. The shop, everybody suffers.
Yeah.
So the idea of everybody working together is the biggest thing. It's a real thing for us. Donut Friday, every Friday, donuts are brought in. I have my grill up there. Either I grill for them on Fridays or we do lunch. But while we do lunch, we go over a procedure. We do everything. Right now we're working on our key to key. And the beautiful thing about that is key to key, what we're describing it as, is when the customer comes in and hands the key off, and then till we hand it back to the customer. So that's not marketing. That's not making appointments, none of that. But that has the service writers looking at the techs, telling them what they want, what they expect out of procedure, and what the techs are telling the service writers what they want. So it's everybody buying in, and so we're making this, and we're in our 3rd week, and we're just about halfway through.
Wow.
So there's a lot of discussion that goes into that, and a lot of realizations, especially it's on both sides. Me being on both sides, being a tech and owner, I kind of flip sides all the time just to interact with everybody, but it does help everybody realize what it's like to be on the other side a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's getting back down to the fundamentals, right?
And the beautiful part is I went to a training session not too long ago, and I struggle with audio books. I struggle reading, and this trainer that I was at talked about how people learn. And I'm the type of person that I need kind of all 3. And so I learned that with my team is that all the times that we were doing all this verbal training, I could ask 2 weeks later and people were remembering things. So now we have a whiteboard right by the lunch table, and we were writing it all out. Everyone's putting in their input. And at the end of every lunch, everybody has to write one thing on our notes, because my service writer takes all the notes on what they took out of the meeting that day. So
Wow.
this way we're trying to back it up with something.
I like that.
So everybody retains a little better. Because I feel like I've been doing this forever, and I keep asking the same questions. How many times do I got to go over this?
Treading water, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
So the visuals the guys have said has helped out. So we're trying to do more of that, and I'm getting a lot more buy-in.
that's huge. Wow. I really like that.
I mean, from a culture perspective, I like the fact that everybody's getting together and you're discussing topics. Particular instance, I'm sure that this vehicle came in. They had this kind of outlook on the car. There was something, we put it in, this is what it said, but it wasn't what I found. I mean, there's always that kind of thing, like, for us, hey, I got this document from the government. This is a new one on me. I don't know, what do we do with this? And then we put it out into all of our, everybody on the team. Hey, did you ever do this before? Did you ever see this form? Same concept, I would assume. So I like that culture. It's a great way to learn, and you're not having to dig all the time because you're working off of somebody else's experience.
And it gives everybody a voice. I always say, everybody here has a voice. I want them to speak up. I want them to be a part of it. When they do, they seem to flow with it much better.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you think about learning styles, right? And, I'm going to butcher the word, but I'm pretty sure it's kinesthetic, which is a very hands-on type of learning. And, I'm teaching a Profit First course at an automotive repair conference, division conference in March. And I'm so used to learning from, PowerPoint, words, somebody's talking, right? I got audio, I got visual, but I don't have the hands-on. And I'm thinking about my audience, and I'm like, I can't teach the course like this. This is how I know how to teach, because that's how I've been taught my whole life. But I'm like, this is a much different teaching style. So I have some thoughts on how to make it more hands-on as a learning mechanism. And I think it's going to be really effective in understanding how your people learn. It's almost like successful football coaches, right? They don't force their players into their system. They build the right system for their players. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. That's huge.
Yeah, and I can't express, how much I appreciate training. The more I learn, the better I can be for the team. And that's what it is, serving the team, right? Making it better for everybody. And the great thing is, since we've started this, I've watched everybody's level starting to go up.
Yeah.
Where it seemed to be stagnant and hard, and you got expectations, but nothing seems to be going. You feel frustrated because how many times you got to teach the same thing? You got a procedure, but they're just not getting it. But once they buy in and they start to feel like they're a part of it, I think it makes a big difference.
It's huge. So you're part of Shop Fix, right? That's where you're getting all your. That's where you're getting a lot of the training. Talk to us about how valuable you feel it is to be part of I'm looking at it as really just a continuing education, right? That's forcing you to refine your craft.
Yeah, and I'm going to take that a step back even, because I feel like it really began, like we were talking beforehand. I worked as a tech inside my business for way too long. I never became that business. It took me a long time to make that business owner transition. And it wasn't until I started joining organizations and getting involved locally that my hat started changing. I started thinking differently, and all that started becoming. So I started networking with other, not even just shop owners, but other business owners. And that conversation and that time can't be, valued enough.
Absolutely.
So hanging out with everybody, learning, talking about your craft, learning all the ins and outs, and all that started to change. And then once I did join ShopFix, wow, I can't tell you, it's not just about money. It has changed so many different aspects of my life. I mean, my personal side, my relationship with my son, how the business is structured. It has helped open so many different avenues that, again, I was a tech. I was not a business owner. And until you hang out with these people that are much better than you, and you talk to them, and you learn all these new things, and you just keep striving to get up that ladder, and you learn all this stuff, and you think, wow, is this awesome or what? So while I've learned a lot, I've made some more money. The more value to me is what it's done and helping me structure everything going forward, and the change that I've made inside my business itself.
Yeah, that's huge.
I think that's a huge nugget right there for the listener, business owner, is investing time in yourself in a program that allows you to get out of operational to the point of being that business owner had. I think that right there in itself is the biggest nugget right there.
And that's when you really start to see the change.
Yep.
Because otherwise you're running around all day being a fireman. All you're doing is putting out fires and pumping out money. That's all you're doing. You're just running around. It is until you take a step back and start making some changes that change actually begins to happen.
Sounds like getting out of production.
Sounds like it. We struggle with the same things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I struggle with that on a daily basis. And, I have maybe in the last few weeks have consciously have made some significant changes. And I can see it does take time. It's not something that happens overnight. You have to consciously do things where you're like, okay, I would have just handled this in the past. Well, how am I going to get anybody below me to grow if I keep on handling it, first and foremost? And so I'm just like, okay, so now I got to push this down. And I think for me, it took a long time to get there because I always wanted the control, and I always wanted, to just get it done and over with. But if you don't, like you said, you don't invest the time in the people that are working for you, they're not going to produce where you want them to. So.
Yeah, it definitely made a huge turning point. And I could have joined this 2 years earlier, and I talked myself out of it because of money and stuff like that. And you're thinking, how could I do this? That's a lot of money every month and all that kind of stuff. And then looking back on it, it's like, wow, unbelievable. I mean, the investment in yourself it's so big, and it's not just for yourself. And that's the thing that I've taken out of this more than anything. It's not just for myself. It's for my team. It's for my family. It's for so many different things other than just myself. It's for my industry. I can give back to my industry better than I ever have. So all those things, the more you learn, the better human you become.
What's interesting is, it looks like a lot of money, right? Because we look at things in such a relative basis, right? And, you look at that spend that you pay for that coaching program and relative to, maybe your mortgage payment or your bill, just your day-to-day bills. But then if you look at it in the macro, you're like, represents, a fraction of a percent of my P&L. Oh my God, how silly is it that I said this is too much money? And it's really enlightening when you can change the mindset of not looking at things so relatively and looking at it from a much more macro view.
Yeah, and the value of just learning. I mean, learning the proper way of LLCs and structuring everything. I mean, that wasn't even something on my radar. It wasn't even a thought process, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
All I cared about was the car inside my four walls, what was going on, and what was up with the human. How did I have to service them? So that was my focus. That was my everyday focus. It never really differed from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fascinating to watch the journey. We started working with each other at a point, I felt like you're almost at an apex. And, I feel like I watched the evolution from you being a shop or a technician to a business owner. That true evolution. I got to watch that, and I thought it was really a fascinating experience for me.
And for me, that was so hard because that was truly my passion. I loved working on cars.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, I'm not that human anymore. I still love it, but I know I can't be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to change and get everything set, it's a totally different hat and a different thought process.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I bet 5, maybe 10 years ago when somebody said, hey, let's look at your P&L every month. And you'd have been like, oh. And now you're like, oh, I'm so excited.
I'll be transparent.
I didn't even do a good job of that.
Transparent. Okay. hey, it's January. How's my P&L?
How much tax am I going to have to pay?
Am I getting anything back? What's the deal here, right? So just to be completely transparent, yeah, that was it. I mean, balance sheet, anything. I wasn't looking at any of that.
Yeah.
It was all just focused on what was in there. And to be even further with that, I mean, watching my price matrix, all that stuff, I was just worried about fixing cars. That was my passion. That's where my focus was. It was not on the business.
And what's interesting is you can't just flip a switch and get there, right? You have to put in a lot of work. I mean, we spent so many hours just ironing out the P&L and getting everything straight. I mean, even to this day, we're still tweaking things here and there, just, and that's just that side of it, right? I mean, you're talking about restructuring some of your legal structure to get you some more protection. Your processes, you switch shop management systems. I mean, the hours invested to get there, it's not, you can't just write a check and get there.
No, it really is. But I'll tell you, it's been exciting because for quite some time there, I was starting to feel pretty burnt and tired. I mean, it was really wearing on me. I was just the same old stuff every day. The stresses were always there. Couldn't turn them off. Can't turn it off when you leave. I'm not going to say I still turn it off. It was always there. And now I see the light, right? I see a different lifestyle. I see, different values for different people. And more importantly, more expectations out of other people.
Yeah.
I always just let people slide. And I think that it's important that if they're going to be part of the team, they need to be part of the team. Right? I think that's very important.
Driving at some accountability.
Yep. They have to fit the culture. But as we all know, finding people to fit the culture today is still pretty tough. But that's really what we need.
Absolutely. I know one big change that you made since you started working with ShopFix was you cut out Saturdays, and this was such a novel concept to me because I came from a dealership world, and Saturdays were, I'd write 30 cars in a Saturday and I'd be running around like a madman, but the salesmen were happy because the lobby was filled with 30 prospective buyers.
And I always go back to this. So I've worked Saturdays my whole career. And once I started talking to other people and like, what are you doing? Think about your team, right? Think about your team. So it became more about the team than it became myself. And as I thought about it, out of all these years, I could probably think about 10 humans that I made a difference of actually being there, a real difference of being there on a Saturday.
Yeah.
But the amount of family, friends, stuff that I missed, right, because of working that Saturday, countless.
Wow.
Right? And you can't get that back. So to me, the value of making sure your team has that and, can enjoy their kids and all that good stuff and can plan on definitely having 2 days off a week, I mean, priceless to me.
Oh, we better blast that snip right there, man.
Well,
just think about it, right? Think about what you said, 10 people and all, not just you, but you and your team missed out on all that, all that experience in life. I mean, we do the same thing with tax season.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, it's just so important. And it's just so, again, it's one of those things where you're so focused on that thing that's sitting right in front of you. And if you step back and you just look at the big picture, sometimes it's just enlightened. It's right there in front of you. Look how obvious this is. It's it's almost frustrating.
It is.
I mean, from a dollar perspective, did you see a cut in revenue, or did you adjust your prices to accommodate? I mean, what did you do? Like, how did you like overcome that day of not having that revenue in that day?
So, to be completely transparent, it's my first full year of that, so it's hard to compare apples to apples to that, especially since the crew has evolved a little bit too, so it's a different crew a little bit. So, but I'll say this, I'm blown away with what we did. And you look at what payroll is for that extra day and everything else. That's the other thing of what those jobs brought in. Typically, they weren't very valued jobs. They were either cleanup jobs or oil change or that type of stuff from cleanup jobs from the week or stuff like that. They weren't really valued jobs, so you weren't really doing well. You were there for the public. You were there for the people. And the thing that we did there is 6 months before we did this, we planned this way in advance. every single Saturday appointment that was made, we reached out to the person and said, hey, just so you know, this is coming, and what can we do to help?
Yeah.
Because I was probably a little worried about what, part of the customer base we might lose, because some people, Saturday's their only day. And that number's turned out to be really, really small. People have found ways.
Yeah.
People have found ways.
Yep.
So revenue-wise, very little. Customer base, again, very little. Quality of life,
Significant. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, every shop owner that I've talked to, and I've talked to a ton of shop owners that did that exact same thing. They were smart. They worked with somebody that took the leap of faith, right? Made that decision, saw the non-effect on the negative side and just the benefit on the positive side, and now they coached other shops to do that. And every single shop that I've talked to that shut down Saturdays has over time increased their revenue by cutting out one working day. I mean, it's a no-brainer, and I think if you think that is how, I think the only time that might not work, a restaurant, a quick service restaurant, probably something like that, where you can only serve so much. Like, it has to be, that product has to be there and delivered instantly. But in the automotive repair space, I mean, if you're open on Saturdays, I think it's a mistake.
And the one thing I'll say that added value to that too is, I don't have it in an Excel spreadsheet or anything, but in my head, the amount of times that people have called in on a Monday or Friday,
Yeah.
Or something like that, is dissolved.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Right. So, I mean, I think they're more comfortable with their work week and don't feel like they need an extra day here or there or whatever. They have their 2 days off that they can plan on.
Yeah, we measured our ARO at the dealership, and it was, I mean, we'd be here all week, and then Saturday came. I mean, it'd be a third of what you could do during the week, because it was.
And payroll's way up.
Yeah, exactly. Because we used to have to pay a tech overtime. We'd have to pay a master tech overtime to oversee in case something went wrong. Oversee, and it was just lube techs. But again, we had the dealership. They wanted to sell cars. It was good for them to sell cars. Not good for anybody in the service department. We were sacrificing for the sales department. That's the only reason why. And I think independent repair shops just mirrored what the dealership was doing for the longest time, right? Because they figured if we were closed, the people just go to the dealership. But they don't want to deal with the dealership level service. It's not personal.
Yeah, the personal connection is totally the difference.
Yeah, huge. So now you're down to 5 days a week working. Are you getting pressure on the 4-day work week?
Not really from my humans so much, but industry talk. You hear about it in the news, stuff like that. And I think that sooner or later it's going to become, definitely a bigger conversation for sure. And it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Most independent shops that I know, especially ones that are just strictly Monday through Friday, are typically open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So they're longer days, but everyone's guaranteed that. And the one thing I told the guys, too, is, hey, on Friday, I can't guarantee everybody's out of here at 6 o'clock. Monday, we could be coming into a crazy scenario, but you're guaranteed those times off. So the whole 4-day work week thing, I think, while it's a conversation, I think that's what it is right now. But it is growing in conversation. There's no doubt about it, because it's all about culture now.
I mean, that's hitting when it's spreading and it's picking up traction when it's getting down to the automotive repair industry. I mean, you guys are physically exerting yourselves, right? You can only work so many straight hours in a single day. It's not like you can work 4 12s to make up the time or 4 10s to make up the time. And it's just, you need to spread that physical strain of that job.
Right. And I think the other aspect of that is telling the customer that you're only open 4 days a week. A lot of people don't like being inconvenienced. So when you tell them, hey, we're closed for, 3 days and we're coming into a backlog, I mean, they don't want to hear that. So it'll be interesting to see if that evolves. and how that may look like, whether you have two crews, maybe somebody has Monday off, somebody has Fridays off, how that really works. But if that is to evolve, but I think it's definitely a conversation that is definitely growing.
Yeah, I think we as consumers will have to start adjusting our expectations that, especially like it might not be something going from even 5 days to 4 days, but it might be a 7-day-a-week business going to 6, or even 5, or 6 going to 5, or 7 going to 5, where, we've been spoiled all our lives of everything's open all the time. And you go to European countries and grocery stores are open 6 days a week. And, you can't, the hours are much different. I mean, you were just in Greece. They don't.
I mean, things would, they would open up early in the mornings, but you would have times where, the shops would close during the middle of the afternoon and maybe reopen during the evening hours, because then they were catering to the people that were just like walking on the beach, or, those kinds of restaurants that were along the beach or something like that. But I mean, then again, you might walk past an office and they're like, I'm on vacation for a month.
Yeah.
It is a much different mentality. I think the U.S. has had a different work ethic, or not. I'm not sure if it's a work ethic. Maybe it's just a work culture. Maybe it would be a better terminology than I think a large portion of the world has had for a long time. So, I actually had posted in one of our internal chats. I said that, something about the 4-day work week, and it wasn't greeted warmly. Now, I wasn't saying that I wasn't suggesting that we did it at the present time, but I was just saying that there are people that are going into this type of, we should be prepared as a firm if we get pressure from employees, and say, how would we handle that? That would be my biggest thing, is how do we handle all of that? Like you said, do we, do multiple shifts, people work different days, that kind of thing. I find it fascinating that we're starting to get pressure from Europe, whereas I always think it was other way around.
Yeah.
We always pressured them to work more, whereas they're like, no, you guys are going to work less. So it's interesting.
If any opportunity we have to better the lives of our people, I'd love to be able to do something like that. It's just, it's a journey to think about the how, the why, right? Is that going to stymie progress, right? If we stymie progress and we have to shut down, then they don't have jobs, right? That's a huge negative. Or, if we don't evolve, grow, provide premium services, right? And are we going to have to compete more on price?
Right.
And none of that's good for a business. Being a profitable business is good for your customer, it's good for the business owner, and it's good for the staff. Working for an unprofitable business is a very stressful experience.
Yep.
And I think one other thing that needs to go in that conversation that, we talk about the 4-day work week is 4 to 6 weeks of paid vacation a year.
Yeah.
That's another conversation. And in my world, I would never have a full team. And the cost of that, what does that do for the cost? What does that do for your cost to your customer?
Yeah.
Something's got to be able to pay for that.
Right.
And so that conversation, while it's happening, it is a conversation, and to go along with the 4-day work week, there's a lot of stuff being talked about that really, to add to people having time off.
Right. Mm. Well, it was funny because I think what I found was a TED Talk on the 4-day work week, and the woman was actually suggesting that you weren't doing 4 10s, your 40 hours. She was actually suggesting 4 8s.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that was pretty aggressive change. But she was citing different countries were able to do that, and people were more focused in those hours in which they worked, so they actually got more done, or were able to maintain the level of work they put out in 5 days anyways. So I'm assuming the water cooler talk was to a minimum, and that kind of thing. But I just found that talk to be fascinating. I can't challenge her statistics or anything like that, but I was interested in say that 4 8s, that's actually pretty.
Right.
That's aggressive for sure. And I'm not sure how people would perceive that, but
that's the profit first. That's their big principle, right? Is the Parkinson's law, where you'll expand the task to the available time that you have, right? So maybe a technician, right? He's working on a car, and in between the car, right, he finishes this car, and then he picks up his cell phone and he's scrolling and, then he goes to the bathroom, disappears for 30 minutes, and then he goes and pulls the next car in, right? But if he's working only 4 days, does all that time add up enough to make up for that extra day? Are they going to be more focused, right? Are they going to fix a car faster? Are they going to repair it right the first time more often to avoid those comebacks, avoid those slacks? I think you really need a almost hyper-functioning organization to get to a point where, you can support somebody leaving for that because everybody else is producing at such a high level that you don't feel that person out of your shop for that 4 to 6 weeks a year.
And everyone's willing to pull the extra weight because they know when it's their turn, it's covered.
That's huge.
So that's the culture. That's the team that's got to be.
That's all about building that culture. Let's dig down. We're finance people, or at least I consider myself a little bit of a finance people. You've gotten really in tune to looking at the numbers. What type of things are you measuring from a KPI standpoint? What KPIs are you doing on your?
So, ARO, obviously, car count, effective labor rate, gross profit dollars, obviously net dollars, those kind of things, labor cost, cost of goods. Those things are the big things that really set the stage for the ticket.
Absolutely. I know we've spent a lot of time focusing on even matching up things like time. We call it timing issues in accounting, right? Trying to nail down that true accrual number. So, maybe you have an open job that you have 3,000 in parts that you already bought, but the ticket doesn't close till the next month. How do we make sure these expenses and these revenues align? And those tweaks, they make a huge difference in keeping that number steady, right? Because what you don't measure, you can't improve. And if you're measuring bad information, well, then you're improving on bad numbers.
Yeah, and so part of the change for me too, working with the P&L is really focusing on putting the month with the month.
Yep.
I changed my payroll to twice a month instead of weekly. All my parts vendors, I pay on the 30th or the last day of the month. Typically, I try to pay all my big stuff the last day of the month. So, yes, there's a few dollars that trickle through, some stuff not put through. My utility bills obviously don't. But we're trying. It has been a huge focus of mine over the last year to really get my month to be my month and not trying to look at this for backwards for a month or forward a month. Because when you got a huge parts month and you pay that the month after, it's just destroyed.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Like we were on the phone the other day, and I pulled open your P&L. I'm like, oh, that number's wrong. There's something wrong here. And it took me 2 seconds to see that. As soon as it popped up on the screen, I'm like, nope, that percentage is not right. We found it. There was a little automatic change in QuickBooks when you start playing with things, and we fixed it, and on we go.
And the issue was the human. It was me. It was
no.
me still looking at things, the old way we used to do them without incorporating the new way. So that's where it was blaringly obvious, as you said, but it was really quick to pick up the issue as well and how it happened. So that's the great part of it. Yeah. It was found quickly. It was realized what happened easily and remedied quickly.
Just to go back really quick, did you say you went from a weekly payroll to twice a month?
Yes.
Okay. There are still clients that we have that are running weekly payrolls, and I've been trying to push them to go to bi-weekly or twice a month or something like that. What hurdles did you have in changing that? And then,
that's good conversation.
Yeah, because I'm like, because the pushback that I get is there's no way they need a paycheck every week. They're just so used to it. Our cash flow, it works better for us. The rebuttals those are just two of the most used rebuttals that I'll get. So from your perspective, what were some of the things that, you were able to overcome? And so, yeah, you said from just an administrative perspective of running 4 payrolls or 5, it's just such a pain. When now you're just twice a month, I feel like that is such a nicer system.
And I think that was all pre-planning. telling everybody way in advance. So we didn't do this rapidly. Some of the changes I've made, like taking off Saturdays, like I said, we planned for that 6 months in advance. And we started thinking about what that might look like and what we might need to do. So talking to everybody, and I think taking the anxiety out of them was the biggest thing, because right away, oh, wow, what are you doing? This is going to hurt me. No, it's actually helping you. It's going to be less taxes. It's going to be this, that. It's a win-win for everyone. And breaking it down so that they get that and understand it and embrace it. And then, you got a couple people that might be living paycheck to paycheck. You just assure them that, hey, look, if you needed some money, we'll write you a check, give you a little bit of advancement till you get through this first paycheck or two. And everybody loved it. Nobody is really giving me any issues.
Right.
The skepticism is what we had to get past.
Okay. Were you paper checks and then went to direct deposit?
It was all direct deposit.
It was always. I still have paper checks for some, and I'm just
we still have clients. Their end of the work week is on Friday, and at the end of the day, the owner, before the people are marching out the door, they're writing out their paycheck for that week, so they're getting paid the same day they finish that, which is great, right? You work and you get your money instantly. But you can get past that hurdle easily, right? If somebody's that tight on their funds, give them a 1 week advance. That's the nice part, right? 1 week advance is all you need to give them to smooth them out, and you just collect it over a year or 6 months or 3 months, however fast you can do that, and all of a sudden now they're right back on the exact same cycle, right? It's the same cycle. It's just that first initial check, and once they're off that, it's good. It's planning, buy-in. They got to understand it, right? And you could, I'm sure you had talk with them saying, hey, for me to really understand how my shop is doing, I can't have the months where we have a third payroll, right? Because you were bi-weekly originally, or you were weekly, which if that happens, then that's a fifth payroll, right?
Yes.
So twice a year you have 5 payrolls, right? So your P&L's looking like this, and then you got right there.
Your expenses got a blip.
Yeah.
Got a blip in there. Yeah.
And that's, and what a simple fix, right? Just change it to a semi-monthly. The only thing is you got to stay on top of the weird dates when you got to get the payroll.
Well, sometimes you might,
if put it on a calendar, you're good to go.
If the 15th falls on a Sunday, then you just pay them on the 13th, that kind of thing. It's not, most payroll systems are sophisticated enough that they'll just tell you to do that. Are you using your own, are you running your own payroll?
I used to do my own payroll. And then, we talk about shop owner and value and stuff like that. And then you realized, why am I spending my time doing this?
Right.
I'm responsible for this. So if I'm late, and my brain's everywhere,
yeah.
Eric can tell you, my brain's everywhere. So if I'm late, who's paying for that? Me, right? It's just too easy for the human to say, here's the hours and walk away. My time is much more valuable somewhere else. And so once I realized that, it became such a value for me to not only take that off my plate, but give the guys the option of direct deposit, all those kind of things. Their check stubs are right there. I don't have to go digging for check stubs for them. They can log online, get whatever they want. Everything's right there. That became priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just as a heads up,
it's a huge testimonial for me trying to get my clients to say, because not only that, but you're paying so much more to run a weekly payroll. The fees in itself just for running the payroll are a lot more.
And even if you said it takes an hour and a half of your time, right, a week, just getting everybody's hours, getting it all done, whatever. If it takes you 5-10 minutes to send over the hours, your time is then spent on the business and not on payroll. And that's like, the accountant, right? You got to pick and choose your battles. And my battles are where I want them to be and not where they have to be or taken away from the business. I'm trying to be more of a business owner and not do the day-to-day type of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. There's just a little heads up. You guys will have mobile apps your employees will have mobile apps to access their pay stubs pretty soon.
Yeah.
Within the next year, probably. Pretty excited
great.
about making progress with all this stuff.
The guys love that. They really do. They love to be able to log in, grab whatever. And again, that's more time off of you because every time, I need these paychecks.
Right.
Right. And then it's more time from you to go do it.
I lost my W-2. I need to send it to the mortgage company.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I actually had a guy call, hey, I know I worked for you 8 years ago. I need my W-2. Like, are you kidding me? Right? I mean,
That one's long gone, buddy.
yeah. It's like, wow. So yeah, all those battles that we choose, it's just making a difference, and payroll is one of them. And you realize for that amount of money that you're paying someone to do, it's like having an employee that you don't have to pay FICA and all that other stuff on, right? No workman's comp, no nothing. They handle their job.
It's a great way to
And
look at it.
they're accountable for it.
Yeah.
I'm not. All I got to do is give them the hours. My job's done.
Yeah,
Right?
if there's a mistake, guess who's writing the check? Not you.
Right.
Right.
And the whole idea is soon I won't even be the one giving the hours. Right. That whole thing will be off me.
That's huge.
Yeah, I think that's key.
And it's a step, going to the direct deposit, to digital submission, right? That's a step of not being obligated to be physically present there.
And just giving your guys the technology of today. Because when you're handing them paper checks all the time, they got to. I mean, my one guy, I never fail. Okay, I'm running to the bank at lunch. Okay, so that's extra time, right? It's like, what?
Or, man, I lost my check.
How do you lose your check? But right.
And now I'm thinking about how your shop is set up right now, right? So we're on TechMetric for the shop management system, cloud-based app. QuickBooks Online for your accounting system, cloud-based app. Payrolls all cloud-based for submission and access. Bank accounts
Probably feed into QBO.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything's digital, right? You can, as long as you got a laptop,
software, subscriptions, everything.
As long as you got a laptop with you, you can see everything that's happening in that shop. I'm sure, and you got cameras in the shop. You can peek in that way. I mean, you've really built this in a way in which you don't have to be physically present, which means you can build your business in a different way than just turning wrenches. And that's so important.
Well, not only that, it's saleable.
Yeah.
That's huge.
The value.
Yep, the value just went up because the person who buys it doesn't need to be there.
Well, they don't want to be there, right? You don't want to pay for something you don't want to pay for a job. People don't buy jobs. They buy businesses.
Right.
Who wants to buy a ball of stress?
Wow. What a great conversation.
Yeah, it goes back to giving back locally, I think, and being part of things. Like I said earlier, I try to get on my local high schools, my local college, get involved on all the advisory boards and go spend time. And I think once you go to the high schools and stuff like that, you see how they work and what's expected out of them. The value to give back and talk to them and give ideas and stuff like that can't be, stated enough. And everything we can do, everyone complains about technicians and pick whatever industry you want. But in my industry, building things, like I put together a program called Grow a Tech. Grow a Tech is based upon all my local shop owners, part stores, tool guys. Everybody gives money for local college. And it has to be local, so it's not a UTI. It's all my local college stuff. But it gives scholarships to all the kids. And we bring a trade show. We get all the kids there. More importantly, the parents, so that they get to see the program. They get to talk to the trainers. But they get to see what the automotive world's all about. And because there's so much of a gray area, because the public has an idea of what the industry is.
Definitely.
And so when they get a chance to see some of this stuff live, boy, they start to change their opinion a little bit. So it's everybody just giving back. If everybody gets a little bit, right? Everybody gets involved locally, just a little bit to make a little bit of a difference. And usually it's time more than money. So if you got a little bit of time to donate, to go to an advisory board, or, just grab a hold of your local high school, whatever industry it is, just how could I help? What could I do? Could I sit in on a day or something like that? That's priceless.
Definitely. I mean, and you're no stranger to donating your time to better the industry. It doesn't stop there, right? You were a long-term member of the ASA, and now, we're on the board together for the Midwest Auto Care Alliance. And, that's really providing a platform for shops that need that community of different shop owners on how do I progress? How do I become a better shop? I mean, I think you kind of gave an ode to your time doing that as, I was the technician inside that was going to now these industry groups, these local industry groups, and learning how to become a business owner. You met with model shops that set the standard for you and helped you make that transition. So just being involved, I mean, just get out of your four walls, right?
And the difference that it makes. What we don't know, and this is what helps when you join organizations, what you learn, most laws begin January 1st. Mm-hmm. And so they start voting these things in, and the wheels start to turn, and then by March or April, stuff starts coming out. Well, about 3-4 years ago, there was a law coming through the auto industry for Illinois that was going to make everybody menu board price everything. So every nut, bolt, anything you installed on any kind of car had to be on a scrolling menu board. And, 99.5% of the shops don't even know this is coming. Yeah. But the ones of us that did, because we're a band of organization at the time, it was ASA, but we met with our senator in Villa Park, and we lobbied for that, and we talked to him about that. He's like, this is crazy. And he struck it down. So, but if you don't get involved, if you don't know about this stuff, you just wake up one day and your business is different. Yeah. You had no idea this is coming. And guess what? It's law. You have to deal with it. So by being part of your industry, you do have a voice. You can make change happen. You can be involved to make sure things don't happen. You can, it's all of that. So being involved is key.
So important. So important. Well, Dave, thanks so much for your time.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys coming up.
Listeners, so many good nuggets here. Get out of your four walls. Get out there. Get involved in your industry, in your community. Spend some time away from your business and just learn about how to make progress. Make those changes. Make yourself one step better. I think that'll make a difference in not just your life, your employees' life, your customers' life, everybody.
Everybody, for sure.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
You have been listening to the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. You can hear more real stories from real business owners about what it takes to make it in business by subscribing to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you like what you hear, leave a review and a 5-star rating. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs and Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com.